Good evening. It's a little larger crowd than we get to the annual meeting, which is a good thing. I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. We're going to talk about what is, in the history of our club, at least since it was purchased by the members in 1999, the largest project that we've ever contemplated. In 2018 fall, 4 years ago, we did a survey of the membership, and they indicated very strongly that we should kind of put our efforts and our money into doing something with regards to the clubhouse, which is what started the renovation of the back bar, which came to fruition April the 1st of 2021. Last year, the Legacy Cup was formed. We derived quite a bit of money from that, and that enabled us to do the outside patio area here, put in a fire pit, put in a new tent, and also furnish this area. So we pretty effectively have been concentrating on this clubhouse for the last 4 years. It's time to change our focus, and instead of concentrating on this, we need to concentrate on that. Because for any of you that go anywhere and they ask you what club you're a member of, you tell them hopefully with pride, you remember the Country Club of Maryland. And most of the responses we'll get, I love that golf course. Very few people say you have a great clubhouse. So we're going to talk about that tonight. We have broken the presentation down into 2 parts. The first part is what you see behind me. We're going to go through that, hopefully satisfactorily answer all your questions. And then we'll move to the second component of it, which is the financing. The votes to date that we've tallied, we're receiving over 80% in favor of the project. So we're headed in the right direction, and it typifies this membership in terms of supporting anything and everything that's good for the Country Club of Maryland. 21 years ago, a young man walked on this site to help us and counsel us in a project we were doing at the time. He was a graduate of Cornell University and had a degree in landscape architecture. He went on and has worked with us in numerous projects. We turn to no one else when we're thinking about doing something on this golf course. He has been recognized in national magazines for golf course work that he did in Arizona, in Virginia. If you played the Glen Riddle courses down in Ocean City, they're his design. And he was several years ago invited to become a member of the American Society of Golf Course Architects. And that membership consists of 175 people. It's a very, very exclusive club. We all know how fortunate we are to have the greenskeeper that we do, the green superintendent, Bill Augustine, and the wonderful job that he does. And we're also very fortunate to have as our advisor and our friend, Joel Weimer.
Thank you, Mr. Booker. It was about a year or two, maybe last year, was the last time I spoke to a full room like this. It was for the Legacy Cup. I was the entertainment. And man, was I nervous, because the blood alcohol content of that room was outrageous. And I'm like, I'm going to lose these guys. But because I was talking about your baby, I was talking about your golf course. It went really well, and I appreciate your attention then. That was a lot of fun. I do love this golf course very much, and I'm excited to go through the program that we have prepared for you today. This is an interesting day for me. It's my second presentation. The first presentation I gave today was down in Virginia at Belhaven Country Club in Alexandria, and I gave it for this guy. This is Mike Augustine. That's Bill's brother, in case you don't know. So I've had my fill of Augustines today. And
The Augustine.
yeah, and hold on. And yes, they are related. But yeah, they're a great family. I think they're 2 of 9 siblings. They're a hoot to be around, and Mike and Bill are well respected, and you're definitely lucky to have the handsome one of the 2 here. So we're here to talk about bunkers, of course. Bunkers, like the roof on your house, they do have a life expectancy. They do check out over time. The golf course is a living, breathing thing that does require upkeep. So it's not like a set it and forget it over time. Now, different organizations have a life expectancy chart. Some of them are self-serving, the USGA not so much. But they do say, that bunker sand, it should be replaced every 5 to 7 years. The drainage pipe within the bunkers every 5 to 10 years. My organization, the American Society of Golf Course Architects, is quite similar. Bunker sand replacement, 5 to 8 years, and the green surrounds 10 to 15 years. Mr. Booker was correct. We did a master plan in 1999, right? So I was 24 years old. Bill, I think, was probably 25. And as I told the Legacy Cup people, Mr. Booker didn't hire me because I was smart. He hired me because I was really cheap at the time. I'm still pretty cheap, but we've been on a long road together. Bill, myself, and the team here at the club. But you can see that the life expectancy of these bunkers. We built these bunkers in the fall of 2021. So we are now entering our 21st season. So we've long outlived our life expectancy for those components. Now Bill has gone in and kind of piecemealed some bunkers and taken some bunkers apart, and done some smaller things over time, but we've never gone wholesale in and renovated the bunkers in any meaningful way since that time. Because Bill and his team are so good, you don't know that this happens to your golf course. So after any substantial rain, this is the fairway bunker on 15, he gets massive washouts. This is before any bunker liners in the late 90s. This is before any bunker liners could protect the bunkers. And this bunker sand was a little bit inferior. So the sand moves at each and every rain, and it is quite troublesome, and it does add a lot to the labor hours. So yes, there will be a return on your investment as far as labor hours. But not that Bill's going to get money back. He's going to be able to reallocate his efforts and his manpower into some of the details out there on the golf course, because we can alleviate this situation here. As things wash out, you can see the pipe. This is the under drainage in the pipe that gets exposed. So this is another picture that Bill provided after a rain, and this happens each and every time. He just hides it because they hustle so hard. So this is a sand washout, but the fancy term for that is called radial slide. So radial slide is the scientific term for bunker sand washout. What happens is that the water fills up the sand and the sand reaches fill capacity. That means that the volume of sand can't physically take any more water. All the open pore space or the porosity of the sand is 100% full. When that happens, the sand gets too heavy and it slides and it washes. Okay, so then the sand ends up at the bottom, and what happens is the soil slope right here gets exposed. More rain beats on that soil slope, and then the sand gets contaminated with soil. So when that happens, and you've got silt in your bunker there, where the golf ball is, and then this bunker has to get put back together, and that sand might get mixed and churned in with a trap rake or a hand rake, by hand. And that creates layering within the bunker. And what that means is it means that the bunkers, after it rains the next time, the sand, I have a hard time with my clicker. The next time the sand drains even poorer, and you get more washouts, okay? And then it's cyclical, so it builds on itself. It gets worse and worse every time it rains, okay? The reason that's so, believe it or not, that the soil surrounding the bunker that's made up of silt and clay, it's between 10 and 100 times smaller. The particle sizes are 10 or 100 times smaller than the sand particle size. So the reason that sand drains really fast at the beach is because there's a lot of open void space and the water pours right through. But when all those open void spaces get filled with silt and sand, it gets locked up and the water clings to all those particles. It gets heavier and it washes sooner. Okay, so now that your sand is contaminated, this happens to build more and more frequently. So we have to renovate the bunkers, renovate the drainage and the sand along with that program. Another reason why the sand washes so much is that the bunkers have been edged over time. That's a natural process. Bunkers edge over time. So it's 50% turf and 50% sand. So now that the sand is higher on the face, right, it takes less for a rainstorm to wash those bunkers out. Aesthetically, for the golfer, when sand goes halfway up and now the turf goes halfway down, you don't get the visual impact of having the sand go all the way to the top or having the turf go all the way to the bottom. You kind of cut it 50-50, and it's not that aesthetically pleasing of a situation anymore. Conversely, as we renovate, we'd like to bring the sand all the way to the bottom and have the turf go all the way to the floor, nearly all the way to the floor. So this is a picture from Country Club at Fairfax. This is the 10th hole. It's a par 3 if you played there. We're going through and renovating this golf course in phases. We're going to be back there this month of October to do a few more holes. You can see we call it a flat bottom bunker. This is what we're proposing here at the club, where the sand is quite flat, and then it flips up just a little bit on the outside edge, but 95% of this bank is turf. Okay, so we want to flip that sand all the way up at the edge, just a little bit. That keeps the golf ball that goes in there from getting jammed into the corner. It'll kind of come up and then come back down so you can get a swing at it. Okay, so the best analogy, it's the curve on the outside of the dinner plate, right? You want to keep your peas from rolling off onto the table and onto the floor. So this is going to be the vast majority of the bunker, and then we're just going to flip the edges to keep the peas on the plate and keep the golf balls away from the edge so you can take a swing and get going forward. Okay. Notice the great shadow you get, with this look. The other reason why we want to propose this program is that it's cost effective to build because the footprint of the bunker is smaller because there's more turf on the outside. It's cost effective to maintain because the bunkers won't wash because the sand is already flat pretty much. It's already found its gravity level. And it's cost effective to maintain in that regard as well. The bunkers will wash less because it seems counterintuitive, but if you think about it, it makes sense. The steeper the slope, the more abruptly we can build this slope, the less the bunkers will wash. If the bunker's slope is laid back and it's quite soft, you can see how wide the column of rainwater that hits it and can potentially wash out the bunkers is in the blue line. But if we steepen that slope and get it very upright and very abrupt, the column of water is smaller, which will introduce less water here to create the washout. This is that same bunker during construction at Country Club of Fairfax. This is the same spec that we're proposing here at Country Club of Maryland. You can see we've got the outside of the bunker sodded. We've got our sod walls here. This is our herringbone drainage system. That's the gravel with the 4-inch pipe underneath. Then we plate tamp the floor. And what we're proposing is to solidify this gravel and lock it into place with a system called Better Billy Bunker. So it's a polymer, it's a liquid polymer. It comes in 50-gallon drums. We heat up this plastic, and we shoot it out through this hose. He's wearing a Tyvek suit, not because it's hazardous, but just because it'll come up his clothes, that's all. So it's a liquid plastic that you spray on the stone and it locks it up. And it's free draining. It'll drain at about 1,800 inches an hour. Okay, so it drains really, really fast, but you need a chop saw to cut it up, and it prevents the gravel from floating to the top. And what we found, we've done this at Country Club of Fairfax and International Country Club just on the trenches, and it really helps because one of the biggest problems we have with bunkers now are foxes that dig into bunkers. I know you've seen those holes. They love the smell of gravel, perhaps. Remember, they like how the gravel gives. They try to bury things within the gravel. So once they hit that gravel layer, they'll give up and go away. So we've had really good luck, and that helps protect the sand. Nothing worse than having gravel and sand because I like chocolate chip, chocolate chip ice cream, but I don't like it when our bunker sand looks that way. So we got our sand, and then our sand will go in at about a 6 to 8 inch depth over top of this of the floor and the drainage. Okay, so that's the spec that we're proposing. We recently renovated the bunkers at Rolling Road here in Baltimore. The sand that we chose here is working out really, really well. There's a lot of, we can make dirt and sand radial slide. We can make things really complicated, but it is important to pick a really good sand. We have to be resistant to plug lies. It has to be an angular sand so it sets up, so the ball doesn't plug, and so that you can get your club underneath. It doesn't pack too hard. This sand here is actually, that we're planning on using at Country Club of Maryland, is actually a combination of 2 different sands. One's from Maryland, one's from New Jersey. We're going to blend them together on site. You can see the cost per sand. This sand's $60 and this sand's $95 per ton. It is the bunker sand is an expensive venture these days. The alternative would be about $135 to Pennsylvania. But we think that this is a good sand for the playability. It's a good color too. It's not too white. It doesn't look, we want our bunkers to be new and modern like Kings Valley. We want them to feel like they've been here for 100 years. So it's like this off buff color. But we were finding, at Rolling Road, it's offering some really good playability, especially with the inside bunker shot. So So we have done a lot of research here, and we found that this is the best fit for Maryland. It's just not the bunkers themselves, but we are going to regrade the surrounds of the bunkers as well to help steepen the slopes, prevent the water from running in, and also to help the aesthetics that I'll talk about in a second. So this is an image here, the cyan line. This is the number 8 green, crop picture of number 8 green. The cyan line that surrounds those 5 bunkers, that is the area that we have projected to work within, and that's what has been budgeted within our spreadsheet. So you can see it's a lot more than just the footprint of the sand. So we'll have good, clean, turf-type tall fescue sod, rough sod surrounding the bunkers to help improve the playability and the visual framing. Again, those things have to be freshened over time. It's more than what Bill could do culturally to get that pure standard turf. So you've seen the boards, you've seen the rendered presentation boards on the easels there. I just want to make it very clear, about what we're projecting to be done, if you vote yes within this program. You can see we've got 2 phases outlined, the cyan up here, phase 1, and this red, phase 2. So if you see it surrounded and colored with a cyan color or a red color, that is included within the package of work that you're considering, okay? So the cyan work is basically the north side of the property. The clubhouse is here. It's the north side of the property. It's the front 9 minus the second hole. So it's 8 holes. And if we were to complete this project, it would be this fall, and we would build through the winter and be ready with holes 1, 3 through 9 this fall. The remainder, if it's within the red outline, would be the back 9 plus the bunkers on the second hole. Okay, so if it is surrounded by one of these 2 colors, it is included within the program. When we were asked to study the bunkers, we wanted to be comprehensive in everything. We wanted to create a master plan or a vision that would take us through this project and take Bill through retirement, right? He's antsy, he's never happy just mowing the grass, right? So he always wants to be doing something. So we did take a comprehensive look. We knew that we wouldn't get to all these things within the program. It was just cost prohibitive. But it would have been foolish not to, while we're studying things, we didn't want to make any short-sighted mistakes. So we have included things within the program that aren't included within the package that you're considering. I just want to be very clear about that. But it is a comprehensive vision. We don't know when those would be completed, if they'd be completed at all, right? But that is an overall vision for the future of the club. For instance, not included within the package because it's not within. This is the number 5 bunkers, that's included. But number 6 tees, a new back tee for challenge for the back tee players, a new forward tee for playability for the forward tee players, rerouting the cart path to the right side of the tee and back to the 6 to get it away from the 5th green. That's a nice package to complete, but it's just not in the cards at this time. But it is something that could be on the radar in the future. That's an instance that, when I say contractor, that just means outside help. Equipment and a contractor would come in from the outside. Another example that has to do with bunkers. This is number 7, the dogleg right. 2 bunkers could be built on the outside of the dogleg to kind of help visually turn the hole from left to right. And we've got those steep faces or banks of grass on the outside of the bunker. We could fill the outside faces of those bunkers and extend the driving range tee to the right. We could get about 3 more stations of grass hitting and 3 more stations of synthetic turf hitting on the driving range to fire out into the range and have it kind of tie in with those fairway bunkers, okay? A nice thing to have, something to think about in the future, but not part of the program right now. Within this plan, we wanted to be comprehensive because Bill is restless with some potential in-house things that he could tackle. Continuing on with some select native turf, that's the fine fescue, the tall whiskey grass. Select fine fescue areas out on the golf course. For instance, this is to the left of the 3rd green. And also some extending the fairway lines and blending fairways together. So, this golf course is about 100 years old. They had very wide fairways back then. They didn't have the finesseful little machines, mowing machines that we have now. They were big. We call them big game mowers here. Okay, so they're kind of heavy, brute instruments to mow the grass, and you can't just pick them up anytime you want. So they would have these connections or these tie-throughs where one fairway would just mow into the other. That's what makes a golf course old and charming. It kind of gives it the character. So, for instance, 3 could mow into 4 in this instance here. So, a long player that tries to drive the green on the 3rd hole if he hits this bank, the short grass is actually going to propel the ball a little bit further to the right to make it a more difficult recovery. Short grass isn't always a helper, it can also be a hindrance. But we would get a really cool look here. But notice it's outside of the cyan color here. But that's something that Bill could possibly pick away at in his spare time, as Marcy would say. So here's a picture of the 18th hole. With the cherries are in bloom. This is a pretty picture, right? And I'm very proud of the work. I mean, we were kids, right? Bill and I were just kids when we were building this. I'm very proud of what we did, what we started with, and what we finished with. This was before restoration and making, going back to the history of properties and restoring things and respecting what was there, so this is probably, if I were to look at this today, it's a little fanciful, it's a little busy. This is 24-year-old Joel trying to impress 25-year-old Bill here, right? So as we renovate, right, the infrastructure, what's cost the money, the aesthetics and how it looks, that's just along for the ride, okay? So that's effectively free if you're gonna invest in the infrastructure. So we wanna respect the history, Herbert Strong, and the historic nature that you have with the club. We wanna make it look older and make it look like it's 100 years old and make it look like we were never here in the first place. For the lack of a better term, we want it to smell musty, okay? Like it's been here for 100 years. Over the last season, we renovated all the bunkers at Columbia Country Club down in DC off Connecticut Avenue with a bunker master plan similar to the one we just did for you. As we renovated their fairways, we converted their fairways to Bermuda grass this summer. So for the last 12 months, we've been rebuilding these bunkers, and I'm going to show you just a few pictures because pictures worth 1,000 words, and I've said too many words already. But this is the style that we'd like to implement here at Country Club of Maryland. You can see that grass base there on that fairway bumper on the left. Okay. Columbia is actually a little bit older than, probably 15, 20 years older than Country Club of Maryland. They actually held the U.S. Open. That's Jim Barnes, the winner, and I think that's President Coolidge handing him the U.S. Open trophy there on site. You can see how old that clubhouse is. And notice that the vertical faces on those bunkers are so steep that those gentlemen there can use them as benches, right? So we're not going to be quite that vertical because Bill would talk to me at that point, but and we're going to be close. We want it to feel old. So these are fairway bunkers. This is the 7th hole at Columbia. Two things I'd like to draw your attention to. Notice how we've got a collection of bunkers, but they're varying sizes and shape. So if I was talking to the guys, I'd say, well, that's Papa Bear, that's Mama Bear, that's Mama Bear, that's Baby Bear there. And notice how they're all kind of organic in different sizes, but they fit together fairly well. And notice how they're irregularly shaped. We want them not to feel like they're built by machine, but built 100 years ago, before we had, hydraulic machines and skid steers and dozers, right? Everything was built, when this golf course was built, it was with mules and horses and these pull scoops here. So we're gonna have these broken lines. It's gonna feel old and irregular when we construct these bunkers. That's our goal. We wanna make sure that we get the difficulty correct and the shot value correct. So for instance, this is a fairway bunker here. If you miss the fairway, this is all fairway turf. It's just got grass. I don't have any good fancy pictures yet at Columbia, but if you miss the fairway just a little bit here, you're going to have an easier route to the green. But if you hit the ball way offline and you're well off the fairway on the right-hand side of the bunker, you can see how it's a graduated penalty. So this guy is going to have a bigger hindrance to get to the green than this guy. Okay, so we want to make sure that we, instances like that, we want to make sure that we get the depth correct. We get for fairway bunkers, we get the depth for the green side to make sure that we have the proper shot value going forward. We're going to have low, flat leading edges. So this is a series of greenside bunkers here. The fairway turf at Country Club of Maryland, as in Columbia, can lead right into the bunkers. We can actually remove the rough grass between the fairways and the bunkers. The bunkers will have leading flat fronts. They'll be easy to play out of. They'll be easier for golfers to get into. It'll be easier for the maintenance staff to get in and maintain these bunkers. But because we're going to remove the rough grass strip in the leading edge, it does mean that the bunkers will gobble more golf balls, right? You won't have that Velcro strip of rough grass. Yeah, to catch the balls before they go into the bunker. By lowering the leading edges, right? Again, we're going to eliminate the ability for the sand to wash. We're gonna lower that down, and that allows us to not flash as much sand on the far edge, because we're gonna lower the front edge so we can see past it. This is a fairway bunker, this is a par 5, but notice the visual definition and the shadowing that you get, how bold these shadows are here. You know, that's 300 yards away at the green on the left-hand side of number 12. And see how that, the flat sand and the shadows, that pops at you? Now again, the cost of the bunkers is in the infrastructure. It's the drainage, it's the cost per ton of the sand, it's the sod that's required. So all of these things, although they're nice and pretty, they don't really add much at all to the bottom line. But we're just trying to convey, you know, the historic feel and nature of these bunkers as we build them. Fairway bunkers on number 6. They name their holes. This one is called Roadrunner. It's along Bradley Boulevard there. You know, so you can kind of see you've got that rumpled strip. And one thing I learned a few years ago, that if you ever want a picture to look old, right, you just make it black and white. It looks a lot older, right? That smells a lot more musty than the first version. Okay, so that's kind of a look of what the bunkers might look and feel like. So just a few examples. Don't worry, I'm not going to go hole by hole. Just to kind of give you a taste of what the program might be. The first hole you can see, this is the big game or see how the fairway really set up the green, and it extended all the way to the bunker edges. Okay, we're going to extend this fairway right into the bunker edge, and we're going to have that leading edge that's going to suck the golf ball in. But really, we have a bunker on the left side, a bunker on the right. Those don't change at all. Of course, that's in the scope because it's inside the cyan line. We have a fairway tie-in leading to the second tee. That's outside of the line. That's something the Bill can nibble on in the future. Okay, that's the vast, like this scope here. You know, we're starting with bunkers, we're ending with bunkers. We're just going to improve the infrastructure. That's the majority of the major thrust of the overall program. The 6th hole, we've got one greenside bunker that's going to be rebuilt within the program. And as you know, there's 3 fairway bunkers here. The problem is, if you ask Bill what his most hated bunkers here on the property, it's these 3. Every time it rains, you can see these V's here. That means the water in a big storm is running right here through these bunkers. And although we have drainage there, it often overcomes the drainage and it washes the bunkers out. So these are the biggest headaches for Bill on the overall, property. So it's interesting, doing a little bit of research here. When the golf course opened, there was an article that described the golf course in the Baltimore Sun, and it said, in 24, it says the hole then turns slightly to the left, and a short distance from the green, 3 lakes stretched across the fairway. All right, the lakes are arranged in step formation, connecting with waterfalls. Right, so I don't know how the lakes turned into bunkers, but we can't deal that hand to Bill. So what we're proposing that these bunkers be removed. This would be grass, some with fine fescue, some with regular rough grass right here, but that will convey the stormwater. You'll still, if you hit your ball in there, you'll be able to find it. You'll have some on-level lies. It won't be overly easy, but sand is not the answer in this area here, because it just takes too much water. Hole number 9, this is one of my favorites on the property. We are looking at moving our bunkers to help accommodate, the technology advancements and hotter equipment and hotter golf balls here. A lot of the longer players at the club can easily carry this bunker. We're proposing to add another bunker closer to the green in addition. We got as much length and yardage out of this bunker as we could. There is a big mainline irrigation system that comes out of the pump station here. But we are doing things like adding a bunker here and there to help protect the golf course from the longer players. So 9 is an example, 3 is an example here. You can see at the green, this is probably my favorite green in the state of Maryland. It's fabulous here. We've got 3 greenside bunkers on the right, 1 on the left, just like the existing condition. But again, we're not going to try so hard in our shaping. We're going to make it look, feel rugged and old, and maybe just soften some of these and get it to feel a little bit older, but the footprints will remain. This is what I'm most excited about over the overall program. This is part of our phase 2. It's inside the red here. We're proposing actually to take the cart path on the second hole and shift it to the right of the fairway. Okay, so the cart path would chase right along the drip line of the trees. 12, yes. So it would go right around the right side of number 12. It would T-bone into the 13th tee, and then you can go up there and you see So you play your cart path here, you put off on the green, you come here, and then you can come up to the tee this way with a cul-de-sac and then come back down. By moving this cart path off to the side, not only will it be more aesthetically pleasing, but it allows a great opportunity to join the second and the 12 holes together with one of those fairway, those game mower connections right here. Gives you a little bit more of a wider landing zone if you're gonna lay up short of the hill. And then we're actually adding a collection of bunkers here to augment the bunkers, the greenside bunkers that are existing on the second and the 12th hole. If you play at BCC, you know they've got like the Hell's Half Acre on the par 5. This is going to be kind of similar with a collection of bunkers and Pine Pesky right here. We're also planning to add a new back bunker, kind of a side bunker on number 2 that would flash up against in a large tee. So we're going to double the size of the back tee on number 13. A lot of divot brush there, we need some more space. So everything kind of dovetails really well with a greenside bunker that kind of fits with the green on 2, the tee on 13, and the cul-de-sac right here. So a few more bunkers here on the 12th hole. The fairway ties together. Two now is talking to 12, and the cart path kind of gets its rightful place out of the way. Let's get the cart path out of the way and really, enjoy the conditions there between the 2 holes. Another bigger program that is included within the project. It's the 15th and 16th holes. This is the original photograph of the area. You notice there's only 2 greenside bunkers on the right side, nothing on the left, which I really like. If you're blind and you're hitting your second shot towards the green from the wrong side of the hill, this is a lot to ask. So you can kind of hedge your bet and play more down one side than the other. This bunker is going to get bigger as we renovate. This bunker is going to get closer to the green, but we're proposing this bunker goes away and expanding the fairway approach modestly on the left-hand side along the tree line. So that would be actually a takeaway bunker here. That would be included in phase 2. And then we're proposing here to finally clean up the area on the 16th tee and the maintenance drive that leads to Bill Shop. Okay, so we would relocate this road slightly to get it more out of view. It would be paved. We would get more length to the 16th hole and renovate this tee complex altogether. And we would bury the overhead utility line that feeds his shop. Really just help to beautify that area. That is included within the program. It's within the red line.
Sorry, real quick question while you're on.
Yes.
Why is the red tee outside the red line?
Oh, that fairway that should be inside the red line. Yes. Yep. That should be inside the red line. Okay. So the overall statistics, just to kind of give you an overview, and I'll wrap up. Every bunker on the golf course is being addressed, right? So most of them are being rebuilt in place. Some are being shifted modestly. A few are being taken away. A few are being added. But every bunker that you now know on the golf course will be addressed. We're not skipping any of them. You're starting with 58 bunkers out on the golf course. In the end, you will have 63 bunkers within this program between phase 1 and phase 2. But keep in mind, 5 of those bunkers are, the Hell's quarter acre, on the 12th hole. We're planning to install over 2 miles of drain pipe within the bunker to make sure they function for the next generation of players. Over 9 acres of new sod for Bill to maintain. And we have 105 dump truck loads of bunker sand and aggregate stone that goes into the trenches. It is a substantial project over 2 fall seasons. Anticipated schedule. So if the club goes ahead with this program, this fall and winter of 22 and 23, we would tackle the northern end of the property, as I mentioned, mostly the front 9 holes. Keep in mind that we are blending that sand. We're going to get 2 different types of sand, and we're going to blend it on site. So because we're working up here on the north end, we would deliver the sand to the far corner of the parking lot. We would blend that sand here. When we're done with what we call phase 1 of the golf, we are then proposing that the club resurface the parking lot with new asphalt after we do all of our churning of the bunker sand and loading of the bunker sand in the parking lot. So that would be included within the phase 1. And then phase 2, that operation of the sand blending and distribution would be happening out of Bill's maintenance shop here, near 16 and 17. So we would do all of the bunkers on holes 2 plus 10 through 18. The Hell's quarter acre and the cart path shift on 2, 12, and 13, and all the work that we outlined with the power line, 16 Ts, and the maintenance drive. That would happen the next year. Okay, so keep in mind too that this is an overall plan. That's not the end of the road, but we have, we're not budgeted for it. We're not planning for it. We may never get to some of it, but the plan is comprehensive, just to avoid any confusion as you review the plan on the easel. The cost and the analysis has been done, so we did study our quantities, our cost, our vendors' cost. Going forward, you can kind of see the phase 1 and phase 2 cost, bunkers, parking lot, bunkers, and then those 2 additional projects going. Okay? All the quantities and the feet of pipe and the square feet of sod, all of those things have been crunched. Okay? And you really want to know, what does it mean for my golf schedule, right? So as we renovate, keep in mind that it's going to be late in the season, so you won't be reporting scores, but we will focus our work on 1 to 2 holes at a time. We don't have to rip up all of the bunkers at once. We're going to work surgically, work on 1 or 2 holes at a time, maybe even 1 or 2 bunkers at a time. As we finish, we're going to sod those bunkers and then move on to the next batch. Because we do that, the course can remain open for play. If we're working on fairway bunkers, the hole probably remains open for play. If we're working on greenside bunkers, we might move a temporary pin out into the front approach. Okay? Because we're working in the off season, that does allow Bill and his team to participate in some select labor tasks. We try to, work on every possible savings we could, so Bill can help participate in some initial demo tasks or maybe some sod installation costs, to have them help with the labor to help lower the overall program cost for the project. So that's all the information I have. I appreciate your patience. Do you have any questions? Yes.
How does this relate to Herbert Strong's vision, not only for the Country Club of Maryland, but other courses that he's designed?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we've seen enough photographs and we've kind of studied the aerials enough to know that to get rid of those lacy edge bunkers, like the picture I showed on 18, right? Our footprints of the bunkers and having the grass roll down to the bottoms is more representative of the work that he did complete. But as far as, and I think I mentioned this at the Legacy last year, his work, although he had some bold greens here, his bunkering work here was tamer than most. When he was practicing 100 years ago, he was known as a wild child. Like, he was the Pete Dye of his time, right? He was an outcast, I think, amongst some architects because he built some wild things. He was the guy that designed the Tour 20 hole, right? So you either hit the green and you made a putt for birdie because the green was so small, and if you missed the green, you're going to make 20 because you can never get up to that, right? That's Herbert Strong, right? So very bold. I mean, you've got some bold greens here, but the ground, he did a really great job routing the golf course. That's a whole other talk that we could have. But what we're trying to do it's exactly what we're trying to do is complement, what he would do at this point, to renovate these bunkers and put them back in place. Yes, ma'am.
I'm wondering if the practice bunker will be addressed also, for those of us that like to practice and have the same situation in the practice bunker.
Yeah. The sand will be replaced and the edges will be folded down in the practice bunkers. Making sure that the practice bunker is consistent with the bunkers on the golf course. Yes. Yes, sir.
You mentioned your work at Columbia and introducing the Bermuda Fairway. Has there been any discussion about that here?
We have not. The Bermuda grass, I probably talk to 2 or 3 clubs a week about converting to Bermuda grass. I had that discussion earlier today with Bill's brother Mike. Last week, we gave a presentation in conjunction with USJ at Argyle Country Club to convert there. There's some clubs in Baltimore. When you get north of Baltimore, it's a little bit hard. The winters are a little bit harder, and the temperatures are a little bit more severe in the winter for winter damage. So you're really in the borderline. Columbia is a microclimate inside DC. It's a little bit warmer there than it would be here. We have not talked to Country Club of Maryland about that. When ryegrass is good, it's good, right? I mean, it's a really good surface. It's just, it does take it on the chin sometimes in the summer. But I think we let the Bermuda grass mature. They're coming up with new varieties, like Oklahoma State and all these universities are getting more, they're genetically engineering this Bermuda grass to be more and more cold tolerant. Maybe 1 or 2 more varieties from now than Baltimore. You're going to see Bermuda grass eventually. Country Club of Maryland will probably be Bermuda grass in the next 15 years, right? Bill and I have never had that discussion, but I bet it's the case. But I don't think they're quite there yet. They are there for Columbia, but not this far. Yes,
How about a new forward tee for number 2?
new forward tee for number 2.
That golf committee, that's the most controversial hole on the course to be. I hate to use seniors versus non-seniors.
Okay,
It's quite an
so I'll
issue.
keep that in mind. Yes, sir.
So we get, first thing I want to do is thank you for everything you've done and for our membership in this bill for the last 22 years. We all really appreciate it. I have a couple of questions about the plan and the bumpers that I wasn't clear about. So, in this plan, are we removing the 2 bumpers behind you on 10? Or is that at a future date?
Good. So the question is, what happens to the fairway bunkers on number 10? So right now, the plan has these 2 bunkers being removed, but the second bunker is sculpted more into a squattier bunker. So the shorter landing zone here, for the shorter player, will be freed up, and that bunker will be removed. But we are going to have, we call it a sentinel bunker here that guards the guy that's hitting driver closer to the green. That will protect the hole from the longer player, but make it a little bit more forgiving for the shorter player. That does a few things for us. It helps the cart traffic get on and off the cart path in this area. And this is actually one of the more dramatic Gangmore tie-ins that Bill could contemplate over time. By removing that bunker, it frees up the angle for the fairway to swing, so that when you sit out here on the patio by the fire pit, you can see the 10th fairway eventually tie into the first fairway. It could be really, really cool, and that helps facilitate that.
I'm not done.
Sure.
Are we also removing the green side bumper on the left of 15, or is that a later date?
That is within phase 2, 2023-24. Yes, that is. Yes, sir. Yeah.
We just redid a lot of bunkers. Is that the beginning of the project, or all that work is just going to be all restarted again?
Yeah, so that was some sand in, sand out, or sand out, Bill?
You talk about 13?
Full 13? Huh? Yeah, so as I mentioned early on, yeah, Bill has done some in-house labor tasks to kind of put select faces and things back together. That work was kind of a temporary fix to get us to this point, but yes, that would be discarded and it would all be new at this point. Yes, sir.
You have a hard switch so you can't side, you still shake and then side them later?
There's little advantage to making a lot of mud pies. Usually, if it's too harsh of a winter to sod, and then it's too harsh of a winter to grade frozen ground, we would just, we're a local company. The guys would just go home and sit and wait. We'd rather not make a mess and make our disturbance grow. Yes, sir.
Let me shift from the golf course to the parking lot.
Okay.
You said you're going to resurface the parking lot.
Ray, that's actually not under Joel's supervision. They're not part of the park.
All right, so,
Yeah.
When we get to the financial piece.
I'll wait till, okay.
Yeah, just ask that same question when we get to the
I
financial.
will.
Yes, sir.
Any long-term plans on the driving range? There's issues, of course, with the ball going in at number 8 with that.
Yeah, so the plan has some additional plantings and things. Yeah, so we do address some of those things, trying to get additional plantings like on the, between 7 green and 8 on the back of the range. We do have some proposed planting there to help buffer. Yeah. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Kind of a two-part question. First part is, the change to the bunkers, the pictures that you showed from Columbia Country Club, faces, design, layout, that's great. Is this a fad? Is this a phase? How long do these bunkers, in your opinion, are the in thing that you want on the club? Is this gonna last for 50 years, 60 years?
Yeah. No, that's a great. So the style that we're picking, if you've ever been to Columbia, you know they are super
They
conservative.
won't let me in there.
So when you walk in the front, take my word for it. When you walk in the front doors at Columbia, right? The hardwood floors squeak, right? The furniture is 50 years old, right? It's super conservative. It's old school, I guess is the best way. So the look that we picked for Columbia, I mean, the best phrase, it's timeless, right? It's classic, it's traditional, right? So I don't think, you know, that classic timeless look, I don't think will go out of style. You do not have to worry about that.
Not just style, I think he's saying physically.
Oh, physically, yeah. So that was one of the, you know, not only do we get that timeless look, thank you, because we're building the bunkers and the sand is flat, right, they will weather and last longer. It is the best bang for your buck as far as the initial construction and the longevity of what we're doing. You know, so it's a good investment for the club. You know, the USDA says that you should replace your sand every 5 to 8 years, right? So it's not like the bunkers will be, you know, you'll have to do that over time. But what we're building, you would give the best chance of success to elongate that life as much as possible.
Okay, so second part of the question, along with that, thank you for that comment, good comment, is the amount of money you want to spend to do this, in your opinion, because you're a golf architect, work with us forever, and you, of course, around it, is this the next phase we should be doing? Why are we doing the bump? Are there other things we should be doing that we spend $1.5 million, $2 million, whatever we're spending on this that makes more sense for the future, for the next 20, 30 years, whatever? I mean, Green Spring just did their greens and bunkers. And they went through a whole process of vetting all the different architects, what they need to do and why, how they would raise the money. In your opinion, let's go Maryland. Is this the best next step for us in taking this course to the next level for the next 30 years?
I think it is because the science isn't there for the fairways. Your greens are as pure as they could possibly be, you know, because you're regrassed. You're not broken, right? There's nothing else to really contemplate around the corner. You know, it is bunkers. Bunkers are really impactful because they impact so much of the golf experience. They impact the visual framing, the strategy, the playability, the maintainability. Like, although the bunkers have a relatively small square, footprint on the overall golf course, it is a really impactful element for the overall experience. So, if you think of your favorite golf courses, my favorite golf courses in the country, other than Country Club of Maryland, right? Marion Golf Club and Riviera, right? And when I think of those clubs, I think about the bunkers and how they frame the holes and they dictate the strategies. And bunkers are really, really impactful. So when this booker says, you bring a guest and they talk about how good the club is, right? I think the bunkers will come to mind, where we're going to be able to have that rugged aesthetic appeal that's really going to be the character, the identity, and the aesthetics of the bunkers. So I think it's a fine investment. That's where I would spend my money on the golf course. I would say that once the bunkers are done, your biggest nagging issue is going to be your practice areas, right? I mean, like it or not, golf is a game of practice. Like we all have time crunch now that we've never had. We're always trying to squeeze too much in the day. We don't have enough time to play a 5-hour round of golf. We know that your driving range tee is too small. There's sometimes it's standing room only. I pulled in today. It was 5 o'clock, right? And it was the driving range was packed, right? So, getting more tee space, getting more grass tees so you can be on the range, the turf, not the synthetic longer. Like we're investing with the area of clubs in the Atlantic. Half of our projects are practice areas now because that's the future of golf. Golf is becoming a game of practice with the launch monitors and all the technical aspects of practice and training.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
yes.
First off, I appreciate the detail it is. It's a great contact. Could you talk through the plan to remove any trees or mature bushes on the property? We've lost a lot in the past couple of years.
Right. I would say that, in my opinion, you were, I always talk to Bill. Bill always gives me an update of any Troop is going to do. We always talk that through. I do think that the club, the golf course, and the property was probably over-treed. We're starting to get to that good balance of a parkland golf course where it's not tree line wall to wall, and you have these open vistas from hole to hole. There's nothing wrong with seeing players or bunkers or holes adjacent to you. And it's also, you know, every time you hit it in the rough, you don't have to be stymied behind a tree, right? Let's remember that golf is a game and it should be fun, okay? So,
Let's get rid of bumpers then.
that's bad for business. But I do think you're getting really close to the good blend of this parkland open vistas and the tree. I think it feels good now. The golf course can breathe, but it's not too easy, it's not too open. You know, with the selected tree removal and the tree work that the club has done, along with the introduction of some of the fun fescue areas, I think you're getting real close to perfect.
So to follow up on that, could you be specific about any major tree removals that are planned as part of phase 1, phase 2?
Yeah, so I think the major tree work that needs to be done, there's just a few more pines between 2 and 12, right? I mean, there may be a few more on the plan, but to accommodate the fairway time between those two holes, there's just a couple more white pines there in that triangle. And honestly, I can't take any more offhand that would be required within the program to get the bunkers built. Yes, sir. Oh, hey, Devin. Good.
At first, thank you, Joel. And Joel, you know the golf course better than anyone, so you were very good to be here in this spot. So, and I worked with Joel quite a bit on other projects, so you're wonderful, so thank you. What, and really a follow-up with Jack's question, is really, in your opinion, what do you think, like, the capital investment that we should be looking at beyond the bunkers and beyond, you know, we're looking at a master plan for a golf course. And you've got the bunkers in the master plan. Where do you see the club, what should we anticipate for either sprinkler system or Bermuda or whatever capital expenditure we should anticipate in the next 5 years?
I mean, eventually you'll need a new irrigation system, right? It's not right around the corner. You know, the fairway grassing program, the Argyle regrassing program, the regrassing portion of that is only $165,000 to regrass all the fairways, believe it or not, to the Bermuda grass. The course closure and the loss of revenue is a bigger component than just the regrassing. Right? The course closure is the standard, otherwise a lot of clubs would do it. You know, you don't have any glaring weaknesses. You don't have any boogeyman. You're pretty solid. Pretty solid. I wouldn't be fearful of anything in the next 5 years. Yes, sir.
How about the stream?
Oh, the stream down. Yeah. Bill, how's the stream holding up? You know, after a storm, what do you see?
It's been holding up pretty good. Especially with the minor work we've been doing since the renovation of the stream. It's been holding up.
Yeah, so we were involved with that. That was interesting. We worked with a fluvial geomorphologist.
Can you spell that?
Yeah, no, so yeah, that was an interesting project, and yeah, there was some few tweaks and some things that we had to address over time, but I mean, they got the majority of it right. I mean,
But isn't it starting to undercut the black TM14, the white and the black G? There's a whole ton of erosion where it makes that turn.
on the turn before it hits the bridge.
Yeah.
They looked at that when they did the renovation 12 years ago. That base wasn't as severe, or it hasn't changed much since the time that we did that work. Because the landscape we do has stabilized it. Still hold pretty well.
Yes, sir.
I have a question or two about pole number 16 of the power lines.
Okay.
Would that be subcontracted under you, or would that be someone?
That would be direct through the club. We just have a placeholder for that allowance. We've done the research to know how much it's going to cost to direct area, but I'm just a ditch digger, but I'm not that kind of ditch digger.
Understood. Just to make the club aware, there's a process with BGE there. You gotta get a work order, and you gotta get an electrical consultant to do the design. BGE's really backed up with that type of stuff, so just be aware you gotta come on.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. One more, yes.
So if you took, this is really a, bunker project, and there's all these other notes on there, which actually are, frankly, to me, more interesting and would improve the course for me more than the bunker replacement. So when you said, at first I thought it was, the idea was that Bill would kind of be able to do those things eventually on his own, but then you had a little caveat in there when you said, or they may never happen. And I'm curious because those, I think, are very important to the master plan. I feel like they're just sort of an afterthought, and for me, they would be the priority.
Right, so to clarify, the things that would be on Bill's plate would be some of the turf, the fairway adjustments and the turf. If it requires earthwork and earth moving, that's really above his equipment and his abilities to do in-house, just the logistics
So
of
really,
moving
most
earth.
of that really is just an idea at this point, with no plan.
There is a plan, but not an implementation program without the money set aside. That is correct. Yes. One more, anybody?
Have you prioritized those future changes?
We have not gotten that far, no. Okay. Sorry to ramble, thanks for your patience. Have a good evening. Thank you again, Chairman.